Good day and welcome, quality people. Welcome to our session today on leveling up your quality game 2024 ETQ Reliance Action Plan. Go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Ben. As always, all registrants will receive a link to the recording, and be sure to use that GoToWebinar panel to ask questions or share your thoughts during the presentation. We'll definitely be looking for some inputs from you guys today to share with the group, and we should have some time at the end for some Q&A as well. Next slide. Thanks, Ben. I'm Angela Anderson, Product Marketing Manager with ETQ, and joined today by my esteemed colleague, Ben Mack, who is Director of our Solution Engineers team. And Ben and his team are kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to introducing ETQ Reliance to new customers and who are in that kind of discovery mode and doing some doing the demonstrations to give folks a sense of the capabilities of Reliance. And he's coming up on his 16-year anniversary with ETQ. So you have a lot of experience to tap into on the line today. And I'll just give you will apologize at the top as well for my congested voice. I'm just kind of overcoming a little bug here, but hopefully we can, hopefully it won't be a problem. If I need to cough, I'll go on mute. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the events today. So thank you so much for the folks who provided some information in our registration poll. So we'll take a quick look at where the results fell out for that. It's kind of interesting. Then we'll get into our proposed plan, or at least some food for thought as you go into your or maybe continue your planning for 2024, specifically taking a look at nonconformance handling and supply chain quality as some high value areas to expand your program. Ben is going to do a deep dive into kind of mapping out what those processes might look like and provide a demo for you. In the course of that demo, he's also going to touch on some of the new things we just released in the latest NXG Summer 23. He'll be demoing from the NXG platform. And then we'll round it out with a few planning tips and some resources, and then we'll get to that Q&A at the end. So with that, let's take a look at the results of those of you who participated in the What's Your Number One Quality Goal for 2024? Everyone seems to be focused on optimizing processes, which is great. I think that falls right in line with the topic for today, and optimizing, expanding. A lot of folks looking to deploy new applications, so we're hitting on that topic today as well. And we didn't quite prepare for a free-form text field on the other, so I'm a little curious what's in the other bucket. So we can make use of that chat window or the questions, whatever you can get your hands on there. If you guys want to provide maybe a little more detail on what other things are a priority for you in 2024, be curious to know, and sharing that with the group. And then maybe a little more on what optimizing a process means to you. So if you get a chance, you can share those thoughts. But that's where the poll fell out. Any observations from you, Ben? What did you think?
It's interesting. It's trying to interpret it. I think there's, as we've talked about, there's some overlap here of optimizing processes or rolling out new applications could certainly also address some of these other broader topics of supplier quality and whatnot. But always interested in learning more about optimizing processes. What does that really mean? Drilling into that.
Yeah. Yep. It can take a lot of forms. And definitely a lot of overlap. Like you say, new applications could be expanding into supplier quality. I'm curious. Hopefully after today's session, maybe supplier quality becomes a higher priority for you and your organization. So cool. All right. So yeah, based on the poll, I thought might be a nice jumping off point for today to talk about optimizing processes. To me, it's kind of code for continuous improvement. In the big picture, optimizing processes, you're enabling provision of adequate human and other resources. So, do you have uh, the right amount of help and the right tools to make sure your processes are the most efficient. You're proactively monitoring your processes and those results of running those processes means you're actively determining and evaluating risks and opportunities, and that you're also implementing appropriate actions based on those evaluations. So all the things that kind of support your organization in achieving its overall business objectives, but through the practice of quality. So as you look ahead to 2024, I thought we might take a moment to reflect on some of the, I'll call it evergreen guidance. It's the kind of some fundamental truths on the topic from our friend, the ISO 9001 quality standard. So this is kind of straight from the standard, some little tips that could go in your planning bucket looking ahead to next year. So the first one, starting with quality objectives. Are they defined and are you still aligned? So we're going to talk a little more about this later in the presentation, but um, if do you know the overall corporate quality objectives? Are there specific quality or overall corporate objectives? Are there specific quality objectives that are a part of that? If not, how can you tie your quality objectives into those broader corporate objectives? And then looking at whether what you have planned in 2024, if that's still going to be aligned and feeding into those overall corporate objectives. Second one, so bringing all stakeholders to the table. So important when it comes to optimizing processes, making sure end to end, everyone who has a touch point with that process, that they're able to share their piece of it and have that giving you kind of that holistic view of all the steps in a process. And even if everyone doesn't necessarily know all the you know details of every single person's role in it, at least they have a sense of where they are in the process, and that kind of feeds into having that broader awareness can really feed into the continuous improvement efforts. And then as a part of that, establishing authority, responsibility, accountability for who is managing those processes and who needs to be informed going ahead. And then the third one, we've got 4 of these. So number 3, system of systems. So thinking of your quality management system as taking that holistic view. So determining everything, like we were kind of mentioning at the top, everything is so interlinked, and the processes are interdependent. And as you're optimizing processes, you're seeing it all kind of laid out end to end and seeing where touch points are with different areas of the company or perhaps different systems. And you're kind of analyzing, if you make a change here, what's it going to affect in some other area? And so keeping that kind of a holistic view in mind of, the impact you make by making changes, and those perhaps unintended consequences when you make a change. All right, so the last one is kind of pretty straightforward. Look at the data. So, with ETQ Reliance, you've already got the tool in place where you're collecting data cleanly, consistently. You've got the data to track and trend. Are you making the progress you expect to make? Where are your Pareto charts telling you that you need to examine next? So all very kind of relevant guidance right from the standard that kind of feeds into this main point of feedback that you all gave us, that there's a focus on optimizing processes. So hopefully some good food for thought as you go into your planning. All right. So moving on. All right. So before just going to shift gears a little bit, and before I hand off to Ben, I just wanted to kind of set the stage on what we're proposing today as those areas to expand your QMS in 2024 and get that critical return on investment. All right, so some of you, you may be familiar with this or have seen this before. This is our ETQ quality journey framework. And it's kind of a maturity model that we kind of try to map out to give you, a framework as you think ahead to how you want to roll out your total program. It's a year's, well, it's a forever process. So when you start out with ETQ, we try to give you a sense of what you might plan for, and a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, for rolling out different processes. Every journey is different, so where we kind of place things along the spectrum, it may not 100% suit where you're at. Every company is kind of has different, can have different pain points or areas that need immediate addressing, versus another company. So the assumption today is that you kind of gone beyond the core, or the ignite phase. So you've kind of gone beyond digitizing your document control, and you're eliminating paper. Maybe you've kind of got some of your training tracking going, your audits management, your corrective action processes are kind of in place. That's all a part of our kind of core application set. And now you're turning attention to improvements in the workflow and communication and accountability, and that kind of feeds back into this, optimizing processes, optimizing those workflows, and you're kind of taking these next steps to expand the program. And specifically, go ahead and advance, Ben. Specifically, as mentioned, the nonconformance handling area and supply chain quality. So what is really the value of going after these two areas? So on the left, you may have seen that 110-100 rule of thumb before. And it illustrates the importance of identifying and acting on nonconformities before they really spiral into significant issues. So preventing a nonconforming material from reaching the production floor might represent, say, $1 in cost. The cost of scrap, rework, refits, tests, inspections, all of that due to defective material escaping into production might represent $10. The cost of the field failure, though, might balloon to $100, where you're incurring, shipping costs, sending someone live to a site. It just gets so much more expensive, not to mention the ding to your company reputation. So these increasing orders of magnitude are striking, and can represent both hard and soft costs. So having good processes to handle nonconformities puts dollars back into the bottom line. Going after root cause, going after that hidden factory that's kind of piling up, or the workbench piling up with scrap, waste, rework, and addressing those issues at the root cause is central to nonconformance handling. All right, so then on the right, when it comes to suppliers, suppliers can heavily influence the overall performance of your organization. Bad suppliers are a drag on everything. Supplier relationship management is really important, because suppliers are fundamentally your kind of fast track to efficiency and cost saving. So in other words, finding the people who can do what you need better, faster, and cheaper than you can. And then you share that responsibility for meeting customer requirements. And good communication on these expectations is so key. From onboarding a supplier, being able to act quickly on issues, to providing visibility into supplier performance. So, folks not only within your company know that track record, but also so your supplier knows where they stand. We recently attended an ASQ industry event. That was a really great event to be face-to-face with you folks out there. And we held a series of roundtables. And supplier quality was one of the areas of discussion we had. That was about 20 or so quality professionals in the room with us. And some of those hot topics were, consistent onboarding, making sure the supplier agreements were, accurate and shared, and agreed upon with the supplier, communication, helping suppliers align with quality standards, and in some cases kind of being kind of a guide, uh, bringing that supplier along on the quality journey with the company, and kind of being a bit of a guide and a mentor for some of these suppliers, to make sure that they stay at the quality level that you need. So definitely very, very relevant, and the issues are, I would say the challenges are real, and they're happening every day. when it comes to supplier relationship management. So we thought these would be two nice areas. It means an expansion with ETQ Reliance and um, you know bringing the quality program to more areas of the organization and connecting more teams, automating these processes to ultimately see that business value from quality. All right, so I'm going to stop rambling and go ahead and turn it over to Ben, and he's going to go into a deeper dive on what these non-conformance handling and supply chain quality is going to map it out for you to show how it can all be interconnected and kind of set a plan for you as you think about 2024 and maybe expanding into these other areas. So Ben, I'm going to hand it to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. I'm going to start just with a quick level set. We talked about the journey and how there's pieces that can fit in, and as Angela described, that can, of course, alter. This is all part of the platform. I was scrolling through our attendees list here, and I can see some of you have been with us a long time, some are relatively new. So just to kind of level set, these are application sets that are available to expand the scope of Reliance into other quality processes. Each of these really encompass several different applications. We're not necessarily going to cover all of these today, and not in great detail, where we're happy to set that up with you if you're interested. But today is more about the bigger picture, the overview perspective, if you will, and perhaps more importantly than the availability of these processes is also how do they work together. Excuse me. And so what I'll walk through is kind of a storyline here, if you will, and this will also start to lay the foundation of what we'll see as we get into a live demo. But we have the opportunity, of course, to manage the supplier information, material details, the inspection criteria and whatnot. Oftentimes, that's where we're going to be working with some of your other business systems, and in particular, your ERPs. Part of the onboarding or ongoing qualification, though, is to help manage the auditing of those suppliers. So let's verify that their policies, their practices, their operations are in place, and that their employees know what's going on. This can also start to go down the path of the PPAP, the production part approval process, so that you are working with them to truly verify that they can produce what you need. In either case, ultimately one of our goals is to work directly with the suppliers. So I'll show an example of that towards the end of the live demo piece, but how really Reliance can be a single tool to help facilitate that. And I think, as Angela was describing earlier, really mitigate some of the issues which tends to all rely on or be impacted by communication or poor communication. Let's look at it from kind of the other end. We have approved suppliers are sending materials, and so at the time of receipt, there needs to be some type of inspection typically. And again, whether that's performed within Reliance or at least we have access to it, that's often going to be a source of some of the potential failures. And that's where we need to report those product failures, the defects, whatever it may be, but also investigate it, determine what happened, why, what is the full scope perhaps of that failure. And sometimes that does include the suppliers. And again, let's work directly with them to accelerate that, the resolution, but also make them aware and prevent any kind of reoccurrence going forward so that they can correct things in-house. Oftentimes, the material can still be used, but maybe there needs to be a temporary change, a deviation to the current process or to the current material, and making employees aware of that, of what to do, what the change is, and sometimes more important, that the timeline associated with it can really help improve and mitigate a lot of those failures as well. That will tie into dock control. We're not really going to go down that path today, but it's just important to note that certainly that some of those temporary changes will affect the work instructions or procedures that are on the floor. and we want the employees to know about that. A path that we'll touch upon for a moment is really, of course, the correction side. This is a lot of the events and the failures will ultimately be investigated, corrected, and that can start to feed into, if you will, their performance rating, their scores. And Reliance can start to encapsulate all of this information, perform the calculations, and start to manage some of the inspection adjustments, ensure that it's the right level depending on their performance versus overdoing that, performing too many inspections, which slows things down, or not doing enough, and things slip through and cause disruption later. So as Angela said, that's kind of the focus here, and where the 110, 100 will come into play is let's see if we can mitigate as much as possible before it even gets into your doors. And then of course have the tools to help mitigate it when it's in the doors, so to speak. Here's where I'll switch into a live demonstration. Again, a little housekeeping. This is going to be NXG. I'm not going deep into any one process, but the focus will be more about telling the full story that we just saw and doing so with records within Reliance. I will also show that concept of a supplier contact perhaps logging in, and it's an example where you can certainly get more of that real-time interaction and increase the efficiencies. So let me go ahead and exit out of PowerPoint for a moment. And just verify I did this correctly. You should be seeing my homepage. Excellent. I saw your head nodding, Angela. Thank you.
Yes.
This is the new homepage. You may have seen some information on it released recently, but ultimately, what I'll just focus on is it's a lot of information at my fingertips. It's still presenting me quick access to what I care about. I, as kind of a day in the life of, might review my current assignments coming up. Maybe these are for the following week. I'm planning ahead. I might also want to evaluate some of the current state of various events and issues going on across our organization. Very easy to navigate and find the information that I want. In this particular case, I know that there was a particular issue that I wanted to follow up on. And although I'm not focusing on corrective action specifically, the story that I want to tell is to start here, that we've gone through some exercises. We're now in the midst of correcting the problem as well as preventing it. And that's all done through the various tools. We analyzed the root cause. We came up with a full and comprehensive action plan. These are in the hands of the right people and so on. But maybe I need to familiarize myself with what led to this point. And so I'm going to use this to link up into our nonconformance, where I can actually see what's going on, what other decisions have been made, which supplier provided the parts or materials that failed, and what were the specific failures. And I can start to drill into this information to get a better understanding of really the impact of that particular corrective action. And so as I scroll through this, I'm gaining that understanding of the full scenario. I can also see where some other decisions have been made that as part of the material review board, we said that there was a supplier fault involved with this. So we kicked off that process. I'll come back to that a little bit later. And then within the nonconformance, we're also making some other decisions. What are we doing with this defective part or material, and so on. This is where there's a lot of opportunity to identify the right set of information, of course, to involve the right people to make those decisions. But nonconformance can often be that quality hub that can really take us in several different directions. In that overview diagram, I touched upon the idea of the temporary change, the deviation. So, just in case some of you are newer and haven't seen some of the dynamic elements of Reliance, as I make that selection, we can now go down that path of actually creating the deviation, identifying the scope, or confirming the scope, I guess, in this case, of the material involved and which work instructions need a temporary change and so on. Let's go ahead and look up the chain a little bit further now. We can see what decisions have been made, where we currently stand with the investigation, but this can also, and was prompted by a failed inspection at the receiving line. And here I can look at the inspection record. I can see the scope of the supplier material again and confirm that info. We can go ahead and review all of the details that were actually inspected and see where some of the failures occurred. So we now have access to all that information. In this particular scenario, I don't need that level of detail perhaps, but we would have used that in the investigation. We could compare this to FMEAs and whatnot, and really, excuse me, really use that and leverage that information to great effect. But again, let's now go back up the chain even further. We had the receipt document, and this is where we can start to confirm the details, what was ordered versus received and whatnot. If you remember from the diagram, this is often where there's overlap with ERPs. So, there's a lot of different scenarios here. You can be performing this in the ERP, and we just get the information that integrates into Reliance. Maybe it's just when there's a failure. There's different ways that we can leverage that type of connection to ensure that it's the right type of information, the right data that you're using in the quality processes. But now what you'll start to see is the connection between non-conformance handling and the supply chain quality solutions. We were looking at the CAPA that was prompted by the decisions made in the non-conformance. That non-conformance can go in a couple of different directions, but ultimately this is actually originating from a failed inspection from a supplier. Now, all of that said, let's zoom out even further. And all of that information is now available, is not just for that analysis that I just did, is kind of tracing back to the origin, but that information will ultimately feed into the supplier rating. And as we run these reports on a periodic basis, it can calculate the current performance and use that score to actually adjust the next time we receive a shipment from that supplier or that particular material. Should we be doing an inspection? And if so, to what degree? So that's really one of the advantages, of course, of consolidating all of this information and the processes onto a platform, or to at least integrate them with other tools to allow that data flow so that we can really automate a lot of these processes and ensure that the systems in place are doing the work that they should be, not always relying on the humans, as Angela is calling it, the people having to try to find it and make decisions on the fly. So again, those were just some of the examples, and really at a high level how a lot of these connect. I had suggested earlier I wanted to go down one potential path of checking out the SCAR as well, and how we can also start to interface and integrate with suppliers more directly. So I'll jump back to the non-conformance here for a moment. We'll jump back down to where some of the decisions were made and there was a supplier corrective action in place. And we'll take a look at that. And the idea here is, of course, that we can report the problem, but then involve the supplier more directly. The ideal state that we would describe is, let's extend access to the suppliers. I think many of you know that there's the opportunity to control visibility and access of the data and the records according to the user looking at it. So you can have supplier contacts access the system and only interact with what they need to, and only be able to see what they need to. But you control that. So you can really start to grow that interface so they're gaining information and benefits from working more directly with you. while at the same time you're getting the benefit of real-time interactions, quicker responses, and so on. The SCAR is one example of that, where we can report the problem, we can confirm all of the other details associated with it, but ultimately, we want the response to be in the hands of the supplier. And this might be one example, so we'll look at this in kind of stepping stones, if you will. Some suppliers just simply aren't ready to access a online system and respond in this format, and that's okay. It may be a set of suppliers that you just don't work with enough to actually extend access. And so we can still facilitate the same process, but as maybe your supplier quality engineer, I will just simply perhaps start a document here, a file that now integrates all of the key information into it, and then I can simply send the email to the supplier contact. And with all of the information that we'd have available, this all would be pre-populated with the right contact, the messaging, the file that you want them to respond to. That's not quite the highest level of efficiency, but it does help with those cases where you still need to communicate with the supplier. It's still through email, but let's make it easier, and let's make sure that everything necessary for that report is available. The other interface, and here's where I'll log out with my user, and I will log in with, now I remember the supplier contact, John Marks is his name, and I think I remember his password. Logs in, exact same platform, same system, similar experience. John apparently has a few things overdue. We're gonna have to talk to him. But he can jump in and respond to the SCAR as part of Reliance. This is now assigned to him. He can do exactly what I was doing and review the information and then respond directly in the record. And now you don't have to worry about emails and was the file size too large or the right type, or did it get through filters? Instead, they get the notification. John logs in and says, okay, let me start my response here. So it can help facilitate that, can simplify the experience. But again, what I wanted to also include in this conversation is there are benefits to the supplier. It's not just get this SCAR off their table quicker, but as they navigate, and depending on how you want things set up, maybe they can look at a current status. Here are all of the SCARs for Midwest Steel for which John Marks is a contact for. And so now John, as the supplier contact, can gain more understanding of the scope of problems out there if he's not the only contact. Maybe there's others. He can start to navigate through some of that information, but not all of it. He can't see internal corrective actions. He can't see SCARs for other companies. So a huge benefit there to extend access to ensure that real-time interactivity, but still in a very controlled way. And then I'll kind of zoom out even further. I'm sure everyone on this call is aware you can really control what applications are also visible to the user, what they would interact with or draw upon. But that can really start to extend to many of these other processes that we've talked about, so that they can either review the information on demand and perhaps react more quickly to events before you've even submitted some of those reports to them. They can propose temporary changes. Maybe they've identified as part of their final inspection that there was an issue and actually work with you as a concession or something along those lines. But that way you can really identify exactly what you want them to see, to do, where they can provide value, where they can take on some of those responsibilities that they're doing now, but do so more directly in the system. So those were the key elements we wanted to cover with you. Again, wasn't a deep dive into the processes, but really more about the relationships and how they all start to fit together to form this picture, rather than just the individual puzzle pieces, if you will.
Yeah, it's
Go
taking
ahead.
that that holistic view, a system of systems, and how things are, interdependent and connected to each other, and how nicely nonconformance handling kind of connects into supplier quality processes. But you don't necessarily have to do them both at the same time. You can, kind of expand and grow at your own pace and kind of with your uh, budget and resources. But yeah, thanks, Ben, for showing that to us, and just a really great way to give your suppliers visibility into where they stand with you and what the expectations are, and then being able to
Absolutely.
respond respond quickly when something is non-conforming. Cool. So I think we had just a couple of questions. Maybe we'll hit them now, and then certainly keep them coming. But I think we might hit a couple of these here since it's fresh on the mind. Jason was asking, you can generate supplier scorecard in ETQ, also integrate SAP data. So I think you did definitely demonstrate the supplier scorecard. And then did you have more to say about integrating with ERP or?
Um, just to confirm, absolutely, we integrate with various ERPs. SAP happens to be the most popular, most common, but that's really one of the advantages is as we integrate any of that data into Reliance to support any of the quality processes, it's also then immediately available for use elsewhere, such as the scorecarding.
Yeah, cool. And the other thing we hear quite a bit from customers is having multiple ERP instances. So if there's an acquisition or something like that where you've got a whole new set of data coming in, there may be some overlap. It gives you a method to kind of create the centralized kind of approved list, and
Mhm.
provide that visibility to everyone.
Yeah, we have tons of experience there as well. Everyone's landscape is a little bit different, so we'd want to work with you directly, but integration with multiple ERPs or other business systems is common, and we can bring a lot of insight on that as well.
Great. Just like taking a look at the questions here. Um, so I'm not sure um, what a couple of these acronyms are. Do you provide updated forms like CP, PF for PPAP? Is there an update to the version by AIAG?
Yeah, that's control plans, process
Mhm.
flows, PFMEAs, and DFMEAs. So an exciting update that we have, if you were at Hexagon Live where we did some presentation and sessions, we do have a partnership with a company that's has some of those updated uh, documents, the PFMEA, DFMEA, and so on, and also to support kind of the VDA, AIAG alignment and harmonization, and so on. So would love to talk to you more about that, but there are definitely tools there to leverage.
Yep. Great. And yeah, that was a fun announcement to make. And then I think you might have covered this, but John asked, how do you limit permission to suppliers to only so they only see their own scars, basically?
Yeah, that's a fun question, John. The most common and best practice, I'll call it, is to make use of the location security model. You often have that in place for your internal teams, so divisions or business units down to individual facilities even, so that each person, depending on where they are in your org, will see what they should. It's the exact same tool that we can extend to the supplier network. So in that way, you can really filter out the content. You can secure records and prevent anybody else from opening them, even if they somehow stumble upon a link or whatnot. But then there's many other tools that can be set up to further configure that. The example that I didn't really describe but was on screen is John Marks opened up the supplier profile. He can't make changes to the account information, but he can modify maybe the contacts or maybe he can upload docs. So you can really extend that security all the way down to individual fields to allow them access, but still make sure it's the right access.
Yeah, great. Okay. And can you open your demo again and then hop back to the charts tab on the home page? So
Sure.
Holly wants to get a screen grab um, and to see about getting the charts on the home page as shown. So maybe maybe you could go into the settings and kind of show where that's at on how to
I'll peel
enable
back the
that.
curtain, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Can we do that? Are you prepared to do that?
Always.
And
Um, so homepage, I have the options of flipping to charts so I can get more uh, real estate, I guess I'll call it, see the charts and whatnot in more clarity. And Holly, hopefully I'm not going too fast here if you are looking for screen grabs or anything, but these are certainly examples that are um, available for how the charts can be presented. And of course, these are also clickable, meaning I can open that up and then drill further depending on how some of these charts are set up.
yeah, drill down into the individual records that make up the chart. Yeah.
And I don't know how far back or how much behind the curtains we're looking for, but I'll just touch on the idea that these are still controllable from the administration center. So this isn't design change or anything on the home page, but instead you can really control what content do you want to show. Certain users will have need for those charts. Others will have needs for various types of charts, and you can really identify and control that from here.
Great. Cool. Let's see. Is supplier scorecard available in CG?
It is. Exact same tool.
Yep. Let's see. Holly says thank you. um, let's see. This maybe one more here. How do we know? Let's see. It's kind of two questions. So how do we know what fields, subforms, and or settings can be modified? Any change on these with NXG? So I'm not sure if Norma's currently CG and looking to go to NXG. How do we find what other options, tools are available to set security access?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm sure there's some Academy um, resources also within the online help.
There is. So I would start there, but that can sometimes be expanded upon with conversation. There's not many options that are limited, meaning what we would want to understand is what are we looking to secure, and we can give you some guidance on that. But you can, uh, as I discussed, you can secure certain portions of a form based on the user and their role, their location, department, whatever user data there is. You can do so and have that update dynamically based on content within that particular record or other parameters. So there's really, I've personally not run into any scenario that was not possible. It's just more about what are we looking to achieve, and then there's options that we can describe there. And then I think just from that first question, probably take that offline and have a chat with you, Norma, about that. I just want to make sure that we're tackling the right question there. In general, most of the settings have not changed between CG and NXG, and if there are changes, it's likely just some of the kind of the system layer that we lock down a little bit further.
Yeah, gotcha. Great. Thank you, Ben. All right. There's a few more comments coming through, but I think in the interest of time, let's take the next few minutes just to push through the rest of the content here, and then we'll check back in on the Q&A. So
Sure.
thanks for that, guys out there. Keep the questions coming. All right, so winding it up here, winding down, just hitting on a couple of planning tips and some resources. So one thing I wanted to mention is, you guys are all looking to, expand from where you are today, and it's, certainly not just that first investment that you made in Reliance. Quality is that forever journey. Requires constant care, feeding, investment. That technology is there, every day doing its job, but that can only take you so far. And when things are going well, quality can kind of slip beneath the radar. When there's an issue, then it's all hands, but it can kind of fade in the background when it's doing its job. So part of the effort is to keep that visibility, for continued support and buy-in, as you continue to ask for that budget. And one way to accomplish this, for your planning, is to make sure you translate quality into the language of business. And just to describe a little more what we mean by that, it comprises two aspects: kind of the financials, and then there's, the compelling story part of it. So on the financial side, like, how will you save money? The data you've been collecting and tracking and trending, that data can help take, any emotion out of decision making. You can start small. It kind of moves with you and as a part of your journey. So as you deploy new processes and thinking about how you're going to, um, map your process and the data you're going to collect for that process, um, ties directly into how you're going to report on that. What do you what do you need to show, on the reporting side, to demonstrate that, you're having success, or it's going to highlight areas that, need attention, and then translating that activity into time and dollars. I mean, that's the language of business. Is how much is it going to, save us, and show those results. The other part is how, kind of back to this idea of the corporate objectives. How are you going to support those corporate objectives? Um, those high level company goals, they can be kind of generic and may not have a specific, quality spin on them. So being able to tie specific quality goals, into that bigger vision, and then breaking that down, across 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. As an example, say your company has a public commitment to identify root cause in 4 hours or less. So traceability, really important, to achieve that SLA. It's important to know, where to find things, have that traceability built into the system to stop and contain those issues and effectively address them. As we've been, looking at through the course of today's session, having easily accessible, centralized supplier information that can inform the risk assessment, what locations use that supplier, how widespread could the issue be, et cetera. So all the things that ETQ Reliance can fundamentally handle and do for you today. So just being able to connect those dots, and have the data to back that up. Okay, next slide, Ben. All right, so when it comes to doing this, we can help. We've got that, and you may have seen this in your initial deployment with ETQ. When it comes to showing that financial impact and that ROI, we can rerun that calculator with whatever your new kind of project is, and have that as part of building the business case, if you're needing to go ask for more investment, into Reliance. So it's kind of a rinse and repeat. We can reuse it for new projects. And if you're not familiar, this ROI model that we have, has places benchmarks in 4 main areas. So we have customer benchmarks, but then we would also, customize the output, for your particular organization. So we'd work with you to plug in all the detail around, your particular data, to demonstrate, reducing risk of noncompliance, the streamlining operations, reducing costs, growing and protecting revenues are kind of the main buckets. So that is available to you guys, when you need it. Ben, next slide quickly. I'm just kind of keeping it moving here because we've got a few more questions that have come in. And just as a demonstration of, some of these things put into practice, a great customer, Ream, you're, I'm sure, familiar. They're the largest manufacturer of water heating products in North America. So a couple of years ago, way back when, in the spring of 2021, they had, there was a boom in construction. They had a really massive market opportunity there, but there were some supply chain issues, as we're all well aware of. And Ream was able to use Reliance to help overcome some of these issues and business disruptions. They were able to kind of quickly build out some new applications to support kind of the dynamic, extremely dynamic environment that was, business environment that was happening at the time. Um, they were able to create an emergency PPAP process within their existing PPAP, and that allowed a kind of they needed to kind of fast track a way to approve parts and suppliers into their supplier base, just to be responsive to kind of the changes on a daily basis that were happening at that point. Also, kind of during COVID, there was concern over border closings with suppliers in Mexico coming into the United States. So they were able to kind of quickly set up a survey and send it to all their suppliers in Mexico, and kind of help determine their level of risk should a shutdown occur, and they're unable to get products across the border. So it's kind of bringing in that bigger picture, doing that risk assessment, that risk-based approach. Um, there was also, hitting the news. The EPA was they were putting a ban on certain chemicals that could no longer, be put into production. So again, they were able to kind of query the supplier base and gather that information and understand where they stood in relation to a new regulatory change. And coupled with all that, just the ability to standardize and qualify and standardize that onboarding for new suppliers through, as Ben was showing us, through that supplier portal, really help them gain a lot of efficiency in that process and have a more complete picture of where they stood with regards to risk in their supply base. So you can see the stats there. A lot of wins for Ream on the supplier front using Reliance. Okay, so next slide, just wrapping it up here. I just wanted to share with you guys, you are not alone. We are here for you through your entire journey. I hope you all know that. And I just wanted to share with you, for folks who may be kind of new to ETQ, just kind of paint the full picture of support that's available to you. Some of you may already be familiar with these options, but just wanted to give a quick overview of the different levels. So you all have an account executive. That's the person who is going to overall, ensure that we're matching the ETQ solution to what your business needs are, and to help you, as you're making new project plans, to help guide that process and help help ETQ, help Ben's team kind of do that discovery and kind of figure out what the best next steps are for you. You have your customer success manager that comes along with, being an ETQ customer. We have our academy resource, which is full of online, on-demand user training, all kinds of training types out there to support you. And then, of course, your project team that's a part of your onboarding services for your initial deployment. But then beyond that, we have our support team, and there are tiers of, it's kind of a paid renewable service tier from a technical support perspective. So those options are available to you. I'm not going to go into full detail of what's underneath each of these programs, but just want to give you a sense of what's available, and would love to follow up if there's interest, if you're not taking advantage of some of these services. And then what I'd like to dig a little more into is the post onboarding services. So when you're in this phase now, you're planning for the new year, planning for the next few years, and figuring out where you're going to expand, what are these new applications you're going to deploy. But maybe you don't have the full in-house support you might need to make it happen. You need some project help, you need some administrative help. And Ben, if you could advance the slide. So these are, we've got a catalog of post-onboarding services through our professional services team. Two of the new offerings are in that first green box, the managed services. So we've got two new plans available for you. These are kind of renewable subscription-based plans, kind of like the technical support plans. Um, the technical account management plan basically gives you a dedicated TAM, and gives you, it's great if you need kind of more of that strategic expertise, kind of ongoing strategic help to drive the growth of your, program with ETQ and adoption of ETQ across your organization. That person will kind of help with review boards and roadmap planning, and just provide that kind of strategic support. And then the on-demand admin plan is more just kind of that day-to-day administrative working within the ETQ Reliance platform. So it's not like, it's not application deployment necessarily, but it's just kind of the more of the day-to-day administrative task with user access and some, kind of minor like settings changes, kind of small things that you just kind of need the extra hand on a day-to-day basis to help manage ETQ Reliance. And then the other boxes, the expansion services, validation, general consulting services. So those are a variety of options just depending on what kind of project you're planning, and we can shape that to whatever your needs are, and price those out with you and kind of go over the options just depending on what your plan is. So lot of options to get the help you need, and kind of based on your timeline and the budget you have, we can break it down into smaller pieces and kind of help you, over time accomplish your goals. So please reach out to services@etq.com if you have an interest in some of these new service plans. And Ben, go ahead and advance. I think we're coming to the end here. So like I say, no matter where you are in the journey, from doing that ROI business case to mapping out that deployment strategy, to providing that support for 2024 and beyond. We'd love to continue to engage with you and share our expertise and help you along your quality journey. So with that, we'll head back to, if you'll advance it one more, Ben, there's some additional resource links here if you need more insights too. We have a ton of great case studies, so many customers willing to share their quality journey with us and with all of you, to see what's possible with Reliance. So check those out, and then let me pull up. Let me see where we're at with their Q&A and a time check. Oh, we have a couple minutes here. Let's see, there's a question about, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm gonna not pronounce your first name well, so so I'm not gonna say it. So do you have engineering change module? I can't remember the answer to this. Do you?
Yeah, and I've been posting some answers in chat as well. Part of the change management module includes engineering changes.
Ah, yes, cool. Let's see. I think you answered that one about the security. Um, okay, I think that, and Tiffany, I think, yeah, we'll follow up after for your question. Okay, great. Well, I think that is it. We're right at the hour. Great timing. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and please reach out with any questions, or if you just want to bounce your plan for next year off of somebody, please reach out. We're happy to help and provide some best practice for you. And thank you, Ben, for co-presenting.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Thank
Have a
you
great
all.
day.